So our next speaker, I was in Tel Aviv in March, and Mark was so kind. Mark, come here. Mark Smargon from Colu, Tel Aviv. Thank you.
Hi.
He was so kind to invite me on a coffee, and he paid with Tel Aviv shekel, and it worked really well. I think it was like totally instant. I think I heard that bell after this ping, and the coffee was paid. So the dream of all like Bitcoin Cash and everybody, without the Lightning Network, we make it happen. So let's wait a little bit if anybody's in. Yeah, are people coming? So they will not miss any bit of Mark's talk about Colu and the way we will use money in the future. What does the talk? Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. Okay, welcome. Stage is yours.
So thank you very much. I'm Mark from Colu, and came to talk about local currencies and why we're doing it. And I have 14 minutes. I will talk fast to leave questions for the end, so hopefully everybody will follow. So we started 3.5 years ago as a blockchain company. Back then, people called it Bitcoin 2.0. Colu was a company that was working on a colored coins protocol, which was really something that predated Ethereum. A lot of the ideas that Ethereum was born from really came from colored coins in 2012. And the company, when we started, we said we want to create an open source protocol for money, really presumptuous mission. And the first thing we said, how do we solve the chicken and egg problem? So I'm issuing a currency. There was a huge demand to issue a currency. It was super complicated, and we said, okay, I'm issuing a currency, then what? Like, fixing the issuance is not the hard part. Another challenge is how do we represent real-world value on the blockchain, which I think back then was really a new idea. How do we represent certifications, a lock to a door, a movie ticket, stocks, gold, like any type of physical real-world value. Back then, we had Bitcoin and a pure digital value. And really, there was no way to issue a currency. The first ideas in that space were really colored coins, counterparty, Omni, if anybody here knows, which is really the Bitcoin version of Ethereum, long before Ethereum was live. Another thing we identified as a challenge is if Bitcoin is the TCP/IP of money, or if Bitcoin is like the lowest layer, who is building the top layers? And when will we see standardization, like we saw with the internet, of the different levels of the software stack? Back in 2013, when we started, most companies ran and built their own blockchain. So if everybody building their own blockchain, who focuses on interoperability, on really building the software stack? So we developed a blockchain sandbox for digital assets. We launched it. It was really generic. Issue a currency. You don't need to know crypto. You don't need to know cryptography, encryption. You don't need to hold Bitcoins. We covered the transaction fees. Like, it was really non-custodial sandbox where people can play. We're not liable for anything they're doing. People launched some ICOs on that. Mycelium did an ICO on that. And it really worked well until Ethereum came. And I think Ethereum solved a lot of problems. I can elaborate, but colored coins is really... Vitalik actually was part of the colored coins project before, when he was about 19. So a lot of the ideas for Ethereum really came from that place. So what we learned from that platform, so a lot of people coming to us organically, we really didn't advertise it too much, expressed similar ideas. Almost 50% of the use cases were local currencies, and we actually saw the monetization in India. People came from India. We want to launch rupees on the blockchain, and there was hyperinflation in Venezuela. We actually saw people from Venezuela. We want we want pesos on the blockchain. We understood that scalability is a big block. Like, if you're developing an entire software stack by yourself that working on something that is slow and couldn't be scaled, so that's, of course, a block for adoption. Also, we understood that, and I think it's much clearer today, but it wasn't that clear 3 years ago, that public blockchains are a distribution platform. Like, if we're looking at public blockchains and private blockchains are working on really purely B2B use cases on how we can improve existing business models. And public blockchains are really a new way to access consumers, a new way for consumers to hold value, and a new way for people to give services to those consumers. And as such, it's a really new thing that can unbundle and create new business models. So we said this is the way to go. We decided to focus on consumer and public blockchains. And we decided to focus our mission a bit, building a protocol for prospering communities. 2 years ago, we launched this product in Tel Aviv. Today, it's operating in 4 cities, Tel Aviv, Haifa, which are 2 cities in Israel, and London and Liverpool in UK. The idea was that the first version was really very ugly, complicated. It was really a Bitcoin-based asset, which was pounds and shekels, and you can actually move them by by basically renting security services from the Bitcoin blockchain. That didn't work well. We actually started giving it to consumers. They lost the phone, they lost their money, they didn't understand to use it. So the next thing we did is build it a bit more centralized, which was a must for us if we want to try to understand at least how people are reacting to this idea. So why we decided to focus on cities and why we decided to focus on local currencies, and the focus was really SMBs. We understood that mainly 2 big reasons. First is that SMBs are the largest employer, the largest sector in pretty much each economy. And the second thing is really the fact that it's underserved. So SMBs, small, medium businesses, usually have the highest fees. They're usually the last to adopt advanced technologies. They have the least digital presence. So they really get the short end of the stick in any way. But they're still the biggest employer. And we had a theory, which is not created by us, really, that if you keep more money circulating locally, people will hire more people locally, people will buy more locally, source locally, local products, so create this local ecosystem within cities, which is an interest of pretty much any government, any municipality, and everyone that is living somewhere and buying locally. So we launched 4 currencies. At the beginning, they were pegged, really one-to-one. We didn't want to replace fiat. Fiat is still the best way to pay for beer. We don't want people to pay for beer with Bitcoin. We don't think, we actually tried that before. There's a lot of friction. We wanted to remove the friction entirely. We want to onboard people to like a closed monetary system. The app we developed, we have about 1,500 businesses in the app. On the left, you can see how much money you have, and you can see where you can spend it. And this is actually our killer feature, which is the pay button. You're standing at the store. Of course, it knows that you're in that store because it knows where you are, 22 meters away. And you click pay. You don't need to search for the store. On the right, you can see I paid 1 shekel to that store, and there's a small ping on the merchant terminal, and the merchant terminal says, "Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye." You actually saw that in action. So in the middle, you can see a really good distribution of businesses, only SMBs, local grocery stores, laundromats, coffee shops, bakeries. And this is also a way for SMBs to get discovered in the community. So today we have about 150,000 users, 2 million monthly throughput. So about every 10 seconds we have a transaction. This product is new, but the idea was to create really a habit of paying. We raised $40 million funding so far. We're almost 60 people. It's a bit outdated, and we were voted Startup of the Year in Israel in 2017. So the idea was to really incentivize users And crypto is all about applying economic incentives to achieve a certain behavior. The behavior or the habit we want to create is people reaching to their phones when they want to use cash. And this is something which is very new, at least in Israel. There are some big cities in the world that we already see removed cash entirely, but for most of the world, that's a totally new experience. We wanted to educate people to do it, and we actually seen them do it. So we have about 50% weekly retention rates, which means that if you deposited money today, there's a 50% chance you'll be a customer next week. Right now, our focus is really building those replicable models for local communities, create an ecosystem around the interaction between the user and the merchant. The hypothesis is if we remove the intermediaries between the issuer and the holder, we can increase quality, increase competition, which will reduce cost and give better services for consumers. And eventually, what we want to replace in the world is Visa. So whenever somebody goes to a store and he has a Visa terminal and a Colu terminal, he only needs to understand that if you're using Visa, the merchant pays 1% or 2% to Visa, and it basically goes out of the system, out of the local economy. With Colu, each time you're using a Colu terminal, you're basically keeping money inside, and instead of the merchant paying 1% to Visa, the merchant is paying 1% to you. So you're getting this as a cashback. Around this event of transacting at a merchant, we can create an ecosystem. Of course, we will not be a closed financial garden. We want people to bring liquidity from the entire crypto ecosystem and basically unbundle each and one of the services that Visa provides. If it's lending, so I'm not locked to one lender, I can get financing from a number of financial service providers that I can share my credit score with. Consumer protection, so up until today, you pay a lot of money for consumer protection with Stripe, Square, or PayPal. It's about 3%, and it's really comfortable to use them. But again, that's a very problematic business model, especially for SMBs. Some of them don't earn 3% of the revenue. So removing one service provider to do consumer protection could really reduce cost. With crypto, it's possible also because people will start using this digital equivalent of cash, so they understand that cash transaction is different from a credit card. So this could go really far, and the idea is that the product that we launched actually yesterday in Tel Aviv is working exactly like that. Each time somebody making a transaction at the merchant, a certain percentage is being sent to a smart contract. So effectively, each time you're shopping, you're injecting a bit of liquidity into that local currency, into that currency that its price is valued by how much people use it, how much people spending in the local community. This is how it looks like in the app. We launched it yesterday, actually. This is why I have 0, because I didn't get anything. The airdrop we're doing for the existing users, 150,000 users for the TLV coin, is really a snippet into what we're going to build. We're rewarding our loyal customers right now, but over time we will increase the circle. And the idea is that each time somebody's, just a second. Each time somebody's buying something at a grocery store, the price of the TLV can change. So your personal action at the store affects the price. If you want to keep it in your wallet, there's no pressure on the price. If you sell it, there's a negative pressure on the price. If you buy, there's a positive pressure on the price. So for a user, it's a bit hard to understand, so we're doing it really gradually, rolling it out slowly, because remember, it's only mainstream audience. There's no blockchain people there. SMBs are the low-tech, very low-tech crowd, and we never went around and sold Bitcoin to anybody, so it's 150,000 users that actually use it because it's a comfortable wallet. Another thing we're doing, and I think more interesting for the people in the crowd, and you will be able to see it really in the next few days, is a dApp fit for any Ethereum wallet. And the idea is to buy and sell those local currencies straight from the contract. So we have a fully centralized wallet, and we have a totally decentralized wallet where you can hold those the same type of currency. And I have 30 seconds for this last slide, which I think summarizes everything. So first of all, a lot of users in Israel heard about Colu, never understood how we make money or what are plans. So this slide, I think, is important. First of all, the idea is to unbundle traditional financial business models, so we're not making money from fees. At least we're not the only company that is going to collect fees on this platform, which I think is a new opportunity that blockchain allows us. Never make money from the data. The users will control their private keys. The users will control their financial data. The users will decide who to share it with. We will not make money from selling code. And this is another thing that the ICO did, which is very important to us, because up until today, it was really hard to fit in the right slot as a company that is doing blockchain. If you're doing an ICO, you're not selling code anymore. You're building stuff in open source. The market has access to the GitHub. It's a big part of the due diligence every investor makes when he tries to understand what exactly we have built. And the most important thing, every user becomes a stakeholder. When you're shopping locally, you're getting rewarded. This reward is not owned by Colu. Colu holds a stake in all of those local economies, but it's owned by the users that are shopping there. So it's a very powerful message for users. The amount of coins that are created in each economy are limited, and they're distributed by doing something physical, like going downstairs and buying something. So this is another big opportunity that blockchain gives us. So this is Colu, and I think I was right 15
Wonderful.
minutes.
Yeah, totally
happy
okay.
to your questions.
Great. And we have time for questions. Thank you so much. Some questions about this. Ladies first. The lady always has good questions, so.
So I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So your business model is to not make money for Colu? Okay.
So we're making money from fees, but our business model is not to make money only from fees, or not be the only company that is making money from fees. It's a bit like if we're holding CLN, which is the currency we launched, and it's worth a few $billions, we hit the jackpot. The business model that Colu is looking at is like the success scenario of Colu is being really a bunch of small companies. Like it's not one company. We're building a piece of the puzzle.
Is that long-term sustainable, though, for building growth and supporting a growing network?
I think that what we found out, which is super interesting, is how much support we're getting from regulators and from municipalities. Because for them, it's for regulators on the state level, it's effectively increasing the taxation base. They have more visibility into this event of transacting at a business. For municipalities, this is a game changer. They can raise money like with those means. SMBs can raise money with those means. They can turn to their customers for funding. This is just creates new opportunities, and it's growth bottom up. It's not threatening fiat. I totally see it as a new thing blockchain allows us.
The question here.
As you had written, you don't make money of data from your users. You need the geolocation data of your users. So, and in the end, you get fees from the stores, and therefore, I think you make money with the data of your users. Of course, you don't sell them to advertisers. First, that's the question, if I'm right. And the second question is how you handle the new data law protection in Europe. Is Europe still market for you of interest, or do you say, like many startups of Europe, sorry, with the data law protection stuff?
Yeah, so 3 questions. So we don't make money from data. We're only checking like the location to help explain to the user which are the closest stores. So we're not selling the data. Moving forward, understanding how to leverage consumer data in a meaningful way, not just to show him widgets in the app. That's banking. That's digital banking today. This is basically the entire idea behind digital banking. We steal interactions from banks, learning consumer habits, and selling it back to him as financial products. And if you look at WeChat, which in 3 years basically replaced fiat in China, one app that basically controlled the financial lives of 1 billion people. This is not sustainable. So we're talking about changing the model. So how do we create an ecosystem like WeChat? And a lot of people are talking about it. But again, it's not one company holding all the data. This is where we're going. That's why we don't focus on making money from the data. We do make money from the fees because we give financial services to the users, and we provide custody services. So for custody services, you will always charge fees, and that's okay. Your last question was? Data protection, I think so first of all, Facebook got $80 billion fines on the first day of GDPR. Let's see how it plays out, and then we'll talk about blockchain.
Okay. More questions? Yes, please.
The actual, maybe I didn't get it right, but what I remember from your remarks is that the coin actually gets devaluated with every spending. Do I recall that right?
No.
At the point of sale, or does it actually increase? Or?
No, it can. So the idea is that we're creating the price of the coin is controlled by a smart contract, very similar to Bancor, if somebody knows. But we did a different formula, totally different formula. Basically allows us to lock. The price is calculated by the ratio between the liquidity pools in the smart contracts. Each time it bypasses centralized exchange for the first months of operation for community currency. The community currency is effectively a user acquisition tool. You need user acquisition for the first months of operation to bootstrap the economy. So this allows us to price the token. As more people are joining the network, its value will grow. After that, it will get a life of its own. It doesn't need our liquidity contract. It doesn't need our market making, which is very mechanical. It's an ellipse formula. Just tries to price demand based on the amount of people that bought and sold from the contract.
Could you imagine one of the communities is just not spending these coins at all holding it and just
Definitely.
waiting for
We're counting on that. Because after a while, if I think it has value and I don't want to spend it and I hodl it, I can still use it as a collateral for lending. So you can hold $1,000 worth of TLV in your pocket and get a credit of $1,000 to spend. So you can stake them instead of spending them. You can use them. So consumer lending is usually without the collateral. So this is another new thing we can do. There are so many possibilities. So again, but slow steps.
One more question? No? Okay. When will there be the Hamburg local coin? We're waiting for that.
So we actually, it's going to be really easy to launch a currency like that. All the services are going to be free. You only need to buy CLN. So it's.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm gonna